Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Saga, where we discuss all those stories outside of the Skywalker saga. I'm David Cottingham with Hannah Burr. How are you, Hannah?
I'm doing well, and how are you doing?
Doing good. Doing great, because we are again talking about some Star Wars stories. And this one, we are continuing the Thrawn trilogy, written by Timothy Zahn. Now, again, I got to be careful. This is the first canon trilogy of the Thrawn trilogy, written by Timothy Zahn, who wrote what is now the Legends Thrawn trilogy. But there's also a second Thrawn trilogy that he's writing right now that we'll get into one day, right? But this book, Thrawn Alliances, the second book, the sequel to Star Wars Thrawn. This book came out July 24th, 2018. God, can you believe it's been 2.5 years since this book came out? Time, man, it just goes, right? Okay, so the crazy thing about this book, I think, I remember when I first saw the cover, you see Thrawn with Vader. And, you know, you obviously knew, okay, great, we're going to get another story with Vader in it. Of course, everybody wants that. But I remember they came out with an alternate cover that showed a young Thrawn with Anakin in the same position, right? So then you're like, whoa, what's going on here? Well, that's what's going on, is this book has two storylines that's going on. It has the current storyline, which takes place shortly after, if everybody wants to place it, it takes shortly after season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. But then you have a flashback to the Clone Wars era shortly after Ahsoka has left the Order. So these two parallels are happening in this book, and you discover all kinds of things in this book. But the great thing is you have these characters, Anakin and Thrawn, and then Vader and Thrawn. So, as always, Hannah, overall, what was your impressions reading this book?
Oh, it was fantastic. I think showing the parallels between the two and the two interactions and how oddly similar they were.
Mm-hmm.
That was something you did not expect while reading. When you first got into the two different timelines, it almost feels like you're jumping into Thrawn's memory, because I mean, Thrawn pretends that he doesn't know it's Vader, but you're 99.9% sure that he knows Vader is Anakin.
Yeah, I think we talked about that from the first book. Yeah,
we did, and so it's no surprise he knows it's Anakin. So it's almost like you're experiencing the flashbacks with Thrawn, and it's almost like if Thrawn is going, he's not really that different, which then makes you think, oh, Anakin's not that far gone.
Yeah,
he's still there. So it just brings around that interesting parallel between the two. But who doesn't like more Clone Wars stories? So you have fun with that as well. So I think we learn more about Thrawn. We learn a little more about the Chiss and the site. And we get introduced to this new antagonist, or this new villain, I guess would be a better word to use. And it's very interesting that Palpatine brought back Thrawn to help. I think that's a very interesting chess move he decides to make in the grand scheme of everything.
Right. Yeah. So, because he's, this, like I said, this happens after the end of episode or season 3 of Rebels, where the Rebels have escaped. If everybody remembers the Battle of Antolon, I think is what happens at the end there, where Thrawn is invading, or they find the Rebels base, and he is unable to capture them. So in the eyes of Vader and the Emperor, he has failed, and this was kind of like bringing him back to help and do this.
Mm-hmm.
The Emperor has felt a disturbance, and that sets off Thrawn and Vader to go find out what it is. And what's fantastic also was this, again, this is back in 2018 when this came out. So this is prior to the opening of Galaxy's Edge at Disney, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know where I'm going with this is the setting. The first setting mainly where they're heading to Batuu and Black Spire Outpost. So what did you think about that connection in the storylines?
I thought that was incredible. It's you can actually go to Batuu now, so
right.
You're reading the different feels of Batuu, and if you actually get the chance to go there in Disney World or Disneyland, it's pretty darn accurate.
Oh yeah.
It's almost scary accurate. It's almost on that level. And so it's cool that you can actually experience this, not only reading it, but actually physically being there. And I think it just brings a whole new level of interaction.
Yeah.
And imagination. And the fact that both storylines revolve around Batuu is also interesting, that it's the same location. Not much has really changed. Mm-hmm. I put that in quotation marks, but I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I do too. I think, and this is a whole other conversation, but I think this has always kept in my head that you could at Disney change the era of Batuu to fit just like this era and have Thrawn and Vader walking around, right? Mm-hmm. Or go back to the Clone Wars era and have a Padme and Anakin walking around. I mean, you could do that if they wanted to. Maybe they've thought about that. I don't know. But it'd be a shame to kind of just keep it as this Resistance era and not be able to have those other characters walking around, right? So anyway, maybe they'll do that. Maybe they won't.
Hopefully they will.
Yeah, I kind of think they will. Okay, so let's we talked about it being the Clone Wars era, the Rebels era. I think the one surprising aspect of the Clone Wars storyline, which involves Padme, it basically starts with Padme having to search for a missing handmaiden that got lost on Batuu. And of course, that triggers Anakin following to why Padme goes there. But I think, again, not giving too much away, but the one thing that pops out to me that was a great eye-opening part of the story was this discovery of cortosis, which is basically this. It's like ends up being this energy that can, or this metal. I think it's a metal that can withstand a lightsaber, and they were wanting to build battle droids with this, right? And I mean, kind of made me like my head spin. Like, wow, wait a minute! If they would have actually had this, in the Clone Wars, I mean, that would have been devastating for Jedi.
It absolutely would be. I mean, first I'm blanking out on the name with it. First, you have the metal that the Mandalorian armor.
Scar. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have that. So you realize, okay, Jedi aren't necessarily all powerful, or Sith. It could go either way. There is something that can stop it. But now you have the introduction of this that for a fact can be mass produced.
Yes. Yes.
I don't understand. It's just you're right. It wasn't used, and it's mind blowing to wonder why it wasn't used.
Right. Yeah.
And it's it's such a powerful tool, and it was completely shocking to read about it, that there's this other resource out there. And it just, I mean, it definitely opens the door of possibilities. Who knows? We might see the return of it in the Ahsoka series.
That's right.
Thrawn might use it to his advantage. Who knows?
That's true.
So I don't think it's going away. I think we'll see it in the future, but it could have been a game changer.
It could have. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think there was even mentions of it about how, no, you know what? I don't want to go there because I think that's kind of a spoiler.
You're starting to get a little bit into spoiler territory there.
Yeah, right. But anyway, yeah, that interesting to know. I think it was also interesting to know that Thrawn and Anakin had crossed paths, that far back. And you kind of got a hint of that in the first book, because there was that recognition from Thrawn. Like, how did he know Anakin? So this tells that story basically of how he knew who Anakin was. But now we go to the current storyline, which is during the Rebellion era. And you have the Vader again Vader and Thrawn are looking for this disturbance, trying to figure out what that is. I'll let you talk about that without spoiling. What was significant about what they were discovering that we need to know?
So I think the biggest significant part of this is we get introduced to the Grisk, who are essentially, I don't think this is much of a spoiler, but they're taking advantage of the Chiss and their ability with the sight or the Force. Basically and we get a little more background on the Chiss too, so that's nice. Basically, the sight, I know we mentioned this in the other book, but brief overview just in case. The sight is mostly found in female Chiss, and once they are matured, they are then basically recruited to serve the Chiss in their navy, as a way to sort of anticipate enemy movements. So the Grisk are kidnapping and taking some of these women. So that just obviously leads into a whole thing that we definitely are going to enter into spoiler territory there. But in the discovery of that and in that journey, as I said before, you see a lot of similarities between that trip to Batu and the other trip to Batu that happened years ago.
Yep. Yeah, I think the Grisk, that's, and we get more of them in the next book, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But Vader is not aware of them, and Thrawn is. So the Grisk apparently have a long history with the Chiss in the unknown regions, and but they're Grisk aren't. They're not. They're not. They're not Force sensitive beings. They're not. I don't know. They're just very organized, and they're very. I think it's described almost like they just hit you with their numbers, and they're just overpowering and very dangerous species, and I think very interesting. I think I vaguely remember them popping up in other storylines. I can't pinpoint it right now, but I think
you're right.
Yeah, they've been mentioned a couple times in some things, but they're out there, and it's and what they're doing. Yeah, they're highly involved in these Chiss Force sensitives, and that's what the disturbance is really, and ultimately. There's a lot that goes on there as far as like what Anakin or not Anakin, but Vader discovers of Thrawn. And again, this sets up a lot with their current relationship that's happening in this time period, right? With the Emperor, because you get this sense that Vader's obviously never really cared much about Thrawn, and obviously the fact that he's just fell in the Emperor's favor ever since the beginning. Especially being an outsider like this, right? No one that's from this galaxy and or from this part of the galaxy, and is coming up normally through he does come up through the rankings, but he goes through it pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yes. So, those were the key points. I think what we always talk about impact, impact on this storyline with the saga. Now, of course, this takes place in two different eras. What did you find were some of the most impactful things about these storylines as far as it relating to these characters for you?
Well, you definitely learn more about Thrawn, and you learn more about the Chiss. I think it's also just nice to see. I constantly come back to this a lot, but it's so nice to see that Anakin is not that far gone in Vader, especially that early on. It's interesting to see the relationship between Palpatine, Vader, and Vader, Anakin, and then Anakin as a Jedi from the point of view of someone who is sure he's force sensitive, or at least we think he is. He most likely is. But just to see it from Thrawn's perspective, to see it from a third party, it's a really interesting point of view. And so I think it just brings another perspective into the whole dynamic, into the whole idea of what are the Jedi, and here another point of view, as I said before. I think it also helps expand universe. It helps establish that too, which is really nice. But I think it also helps us see Anakin after he loses Ahsoka, which is I would argue is one of the biggest dominoes that sets him down the path to the dark side. So I think all of that combined, is it something you need? Maybe not. But is it a great book and you get awesome story and galaxy expansion? Heck yeah. So I think it definitely adds to it, but if it wasn't there, nothing would be missing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I don't think it's as impactful as far as your perception of these characters in these other movies or TV shows. Reading this, of course, and then going into season 4 of Rebels, it doesn't really change much of Thrawn's character or what you think of his character. I mean, his character is pretty one-dimensional in a sense. Anyway, he's awesome, but he's got his mind. There's not a lot of development with him. I mean, he is who he is, and it is a great character to have around. I think if it wasn't, to be honest, I think if it wasn't for the Clone Wars flashback storyline, I think it would be a very average book.
Oh, absolutely.
I think having that flashback, and I was so excited that Padme was in it. And you get a lot of that Padme Anakin interaction and how much they're trying to still keep their marriage, hidden. So I love it for that. I love that we got a little bit more of them, because I love that era of Star Wars. And again, just knowing that Thrawn and Anakin interacted back then, I actually that whole, and I remember thinking this because I listened to it, right, the audiobook. It's like listening to a Star Wars movie. I remember thinking, listening to it, God, how great would it have been if this was Clone Wars episodes?
Oh, absolutely. Like, is it possible that it might have been if it was longer and they gave that information to Timothy? And he was like, oh, I can incorporate this and make a parallel to this, and voila, I have this masterpiece.
Yes. Yeah, it would have been great to see that as an animated show.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, okay. So, overall rating, let's see. I don't remember what I gave the first one. I'm probably thinking I gave it a 4-star because
I think so. I think both of us.
yeah, we really liked it. So, where are you with this book?
I like it more than the first book. So while it's not perfect, 4.5.
4.5. Yeah. Let's see. I'd have to look back. Did I give it a? I'd have to listen back if we gave it a 4. But I would say, yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I give it 4.5. I think I'm gonna still give it a 4.
A 4.25?
maybe just slight more. I would put it ahead of the first book, but not too much more. But it was definitely better because of the Clone Wars episode, the Clone Wars aspect of it, and of course more deep dive into the Chiss. Like you said. So anyway, very good book. I think we both highly recommend. I mean, this trilogy is really, really good. And eventually we will release our thoughts and feelings about the third and final book, which is Thrawn Treason. Yeah, that'll be on a very close up and coming beyond the saga.
Absolutely.
Okay, Hannah, I appreciate it. Thanks for joining me and diving into this.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate all you listeners.
Yes, thank you, listeners and watchers. Thank you very much. I don't think we've ever really done this, but maybe if you want to send us any recommendations on things you want us to go through, we'll take that. We've kind of got our list of things we want to go down. I'll just say some things on our list right now is we're going to be eventually talking through the Aftermath series, the novels by Chuck Wendig. We are going to dive into the 2015 Star Wars comic series. That's on our list. I think Afra should be on our list.
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. So the novels, other novels that, I mean, Aftermath is a big 3-book series that we need to get through. And then beyond that, there's definitely other books that we still have to get through. But yeah, if you got any recommendations, please send them our way. We'll take them and dive into them. So, but again, thank you everybody for watching and listening. We're at InsideTheForce.com. You can go to our YouTube channel where you're watching this if you are, and you can actually get into the description where we've put a link for this book if you want to go right to Amazon and buy this book, Thrawn Alliances. All right. Until next time, thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Take care. May the Force be with you.